Hi guys, in this video today we're going to talk about how you can conserve your energy and playing sensibly so you're not running around the court unnecessarily. Now this was asked by some of the veteran players, but actually it applies to players of all levels or anyone playing a tournament, because hopefully in your tournaments you have more than one match, and if you have a tough match and then you have to play another game, it's good to know how you can choose your shots in order to save your energy. To begin with, we'll start at the back of the court. Now, I know the objective of paddle is to get that net position, but one of the problems we always see is that players are constantly trying to rush forward on the wrong balls. They're going to hit a ball from the back and they run forward into no man's land, then end up blocking and have to get back to defend that next ball because your opponents are at net. And the player ends up doing these 3-meter sprints 3 or 4 times in the point, and obviously they're going to get tired doing that. So what you should really be trying to do is to hit the balls down until you get the right ball, then choose that right ball to hit a lob. And what that means is not only will you probably hit a good lob because you're actually choosing the right ball to do it, but also you're only going to have to run forward that one time to approach the net. The next question is, how do I know which is the right ball to lob on? Now, if you've come from tennis, you're used to lobbing off a defensive shot when you're forced out of position and you lob to buy yourself time. Yes, you can do that in paddle, you can hit a high lob to get yourself back into position, but that's usually only to recover at the back. You don't often hit a lob out of position in order to lob your opponents and then come forward. Now, what I'm talking about is here, hitting a couple of balls, and when you get an easy ball, that's when you go for your lob, because you can be a lot more accurate, you can put that ball past the service line of the opponents, and then you've got time to come forward together. Watching the player on the left here, you can see he stays at that service line or around that service line. Even when he's stretched, he hits a good lob, he doesn't come all the way in there, he stays around that service line until he gets the chance. He forces it here with a short ball, gets that nice short shot, hits the fast lob, and then goes into net. And you can see he's not rushing into net because he knows his opponent's going to hit a lob. When it comes to the direction of the lob, it really depends where you are on the court. For example, if they hit a short ball to your forehand and you move forward, you can play a nice lob cross court and you know that you're only 2 or 3 steps away from where you need to be in your next position. And if you change direction, you're probably 7 or 8 steps to get into the right position at the side of the box covering the line. The same applies if it's a backhand and you want to hit that ball down the line, you're much closer to where you need to be. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if it's 4 or 5 steps and you're thinking about doing this maybe once or twice per point for the whole match, then that really adds up to a lot of energy. So ideally, wherever you are in the court, if you can lob so that your next position you're closer to, that is a good way to save your energy. When you're at net, there's a few different ways of saving energy. To begin with, the biggest waste of energy is players going for smashes that are too far back in the court and they're being aggressive with it. They run back and then they try and hit an aggressive smash instead of a controlled bandeja, and what that means is they have to sprint back to get to their net position because their ball is fast and they're not buying themselves time, and also their opponents are in a better position, which means that they can put you in trouble again on that next ball. Using this as an example, even though this player has an amazing smash, you can see that he's smashed from quite far back, and if the placement isn't great, you can see that the opponents have an opportunity to come forward and attack. Another really important way to save energy is the direction of your volleys. So for example, if the ball is in the forehand corner and I'm covering down the line and my partner is covering the middle, if I keep changing the direction, it means I have to keep changing my position. So if he hits to me and I open the court up to the backhand side, that means I've got to run across and cover the middle of the court. And then if my partner changes, again I'm running across. And you end up doing sprints across to cover your position. Whereas if I play that ball back to him down the line, I don't need to move anywhere. I can stay here nice and comfortable and play that ball straight back to the opponent. Not only is that good paddle, but also it's going to conserve your energy. Here you can see some good paddle. The players, they hit to that same corner, meaning they don't have to move. Both players, even though he comes back for the bandeja, he hits it back cross court, recovers his net position, his partner doesn't need to move either, and eventually they force the winner. When it comes to the shot selection, whether it's at the front or the back, there's a few things to consider. First of all, it's easier to play cross court most of the time. So if you're hitting the ball down the line, most of the time they'll get your partner involved. Not all of the time, but most of the time they'll get the partner involved, and therefore you can take a little bit of a breather. Now, when it comes to your bandeja, if you've been lobbed, if you want to get your partner involved, you can hit your bandeja down the line. It's a little bit more difficult, but it means that you can recover to your position here, which is close, And your partner can be slightly further back and they'll end up covering a little bit more of the court. Or your other option is if you want to hit your bandeja cross court, it means that you can stay slightly behind your partner and therefore you won't need to be doing as many of the sprints. So if you get into a situation where you're getting a bit tired and they keep lobbing to you, you can just hit that bandeja cross and you don't need to recover all the way up to the net. Unless they start catching you out with angles to the fence or short balls to this corner, you can just keep doing that until you get that right ball and conserve your energy so that when you get the good ball and you can be really aggressive, that you can really go for it. There's no point going for these balls, you're better off being sensible and then when you get your right chance, to go for it. A couple of things to notice during this point. Firstly, you can see how rare it is that the players change direction. Here you can see that there becomes a rally cross court. It goes from bandeja to lob, and when you do change direction, you can see that player plays cross court and gets the partner involved. So that's a good way to save energy. The point gets a little bit tough, there's some running around, and now watch this player on the left. He's buying himself some energy here. He's going to start hitting some lobs and get himself back into that point. He's trying to force the net, realizes the guys are holding the net well, and then continues to hit some lobs. So he's hit one lob, he hits another lob, he hits almost 5 or 6 lobs in a row to keep himself at that back position, and only will come forward once they can gain the net. You can see that it's easier for the player to play cross. For example, when they hits the bandeja down the line, the player plays the ball cross court instead of back down the line to him. And here you can see we've eventually got the net after a good lob, and we're going to try and keep that. Again, cross court until there's one down the line, and then the opponents come forward again, trying to keep that net position, and finish with a cheeky little drop shot. The last piece of advice is to know your partner, and this is something that we see a lot at the recreational level where players get lobbed, the partners both look at each other and think, oh yeah, that's mine, and then they both end up covering extra distance because they're not sure whose ball is whose. And especially when they're changing direction a lot, it means that they're constantly moving, and if they don't know where they should be moving to and which positions, then it means that both of you are going to cover way more ground than you need to. So if you haven't already seen the Moving as a Pair video, I definitely recommend watching that next.